details, instead of just thinking I know the story, I want to know the story of your father and your grandfather and the upset that took place, and I don't know how old Grandpa was at the time, but when he was banished to the farm, and then what happened. No, we're going to start from the very beginning. What happened, what caused the conflict between the son and the father, and then he was banished to a farm somewhere. I don't know where that farm was.
I'm going to tell you if you'll just shut up.
No, I'm asking you all that what the story entails. I want to know how long he stayed at the farm, where he went after that, and why, his brothers were all educated in colleges and universities and went on to become professors and lawyers and doctors, and he was a machinist. And that there's a story behind that I think is fascinating. So let's start with where Grandpa was born.
Idaho.
Where?
Blackfoot. What? Wasn't it Blackfoot? Yeah.
Okay, Grandpa was born. Do you know when?
Well, there's 20 years difference.
Between you and your dad?
Mm-hmm. Exactly 20 years?
So he was born in 1901. No, 1903.
1903.
Okay, 1903. And his birth date is what?
April the 9th. Same as Tina's.
Okay. And he was, how many brothers and sisters did he have?
Well, I think there was 14 altogether.
He had 14, so he was the 15th child?
And not all of them lived, of course.
Or was he the 14th of 14 children?
I don't know.
Okay. He had 14 or 15 brothers and sisters. I'll have to look that up on the IGI.
Yeah.
And what order, what number was he?
He was way down near the bottom. He was like, maybe 13.
Okay, he was the 13th, and he was a twin.
Right.
He was a twin, and his twin was a sister.
Yeah.
Orvilla.
I didn't know that was her name.
Yep.
And how long did she live?
She was 3.
Mm-hmm.
And Robin,
Yeah.
we're asking Grandma. She was 3 years old when she died, and she died of what?
The flu.
And she died of the influenza. Oh, Robin?
What was it, Robin?
It's some other epidemic, but it
She
wasn't the flu.
died of an epidemic. Okay. Do you have any living cousins from your father's side of the family? Are there any living cousins before we go on with the story? Because if they're still living, we can get some story from them also. So
Well, I have Shirley that lives around the corner from me.
Shirley is the daughter of whom?
Gladys, Aunt Gladys.
Daughter of Aunt Gladys.
But Aunt Gladys has departed.
Okay, I don't think, are any of Grandpa's brothers and sisters still living?
No.
No, okay. So you have a cousin Shirley, who is the daughter of Aunt Gladys. Are there any others that you can think of right now, off the top of your head? Cousins?
Well, up until a couple of years ago, I had cousin Dal, D-A-L, Cutler, and you know, D from Kaysville or wherever Calvin taught, that kid.
You mean from Layton? You mean from Layton High School?
Yeah,
His name was D. Cutler?
D.
And was he the son?
Yeah, of Dal.
Okay. And Dal Cutler, do you know if he's alive or not?
I don't, because he didn't come to the cemetery this last year.
And he is the son of whom?
Uncle Ed, who is buried right next to Grandma and Grandpa.
Okay. So if you could, I mean, I know that this is hard because you can't remember totally, but could you start with the siblings of Grandpa that you can remember starting, I mean, if you have any idea, because I can't remember all their names. Obviously, we have a Gladys and an Ed. I think
And
there
Aunt
would,
Marion.
yeah, we know Marion.
And Hortense.
Yes.
Okay, Marion, Hortense, Ed, Gladys. That was the sister that he was closest to, I think. What was the sister that he was closest to? Grandpa.
Aunt Marion.
Oh. Okay. That
He
makes
was
sense.
closest to Uncle Ed. Uncle Ed became a father figure.
Okay, that's good to know.
Uncle Glenn lived in Altadena.
And he was the lawyer.
He was the lawyer.
Was he the lawyer of the city of Altadena?
He had a lot of weight.
But you don't know if he was the city's lawyer.
Nah.
I thought you told me once that he
Well,
was.
his son was the district attorney in Santa Barbara.
Son, DA, and is he still living?
I have no idea.
What
They
was
moved to Guatemala.
Oh, I guess we don't need to worry about him then. 2, 3, that's 5. Grandpa makes 6. Well, we almost have 50%. Anyone else that you can think of? Another sister besides Gladys and Hortense?
And Marion.
And Marion, that's 3. We have 3 girls and 2 boys.
Well, there was,
Who's the brother that died?
Uncle Cliff
Okay, Cliff.
died in California. He had TB of the bone, I think.
Okay. That's good to know.
He was the era. What did you call those people of that 1920s era?
Oh,
A flapper?
oh, that's
Yeah.
the girls.
Yeah.
Girls were flappers. I don't know what they called the boys.
I don't know.
Cal would know. Teaches that.
Mhm.
Yeah, they were quite the dapper dressers.
Oh, yeah, he wore the
Zoot suit?
tied, no,
Hmm.
The
zoot suit came way after that.
Oh.
hat and
Hmm.
But the flappy hat and the tied around the waist coat, like Dick Tracy.
very smart looking.
Now, didn't you have an uncle that committed suicide? Was that one of Grandpa's brothers, or was that a different relative?
A cousin,
Oh, that was a cousin.
Mhm.
Okay.
uncle. He was a professor at the University of Utah. Harold.
And he was a professor at the University of Utah, and wasn't it English that he was a professor of?
Economics.
Economics. It started with me.
And his son was a psychologist.
Wasn't somebody a physics professor? Cutler, that was a physics professor?
It was not our line.
Oh, okay. His son was a, what did she say, psychologist? Who were the uncles that left you in charge of the horses? Oh, that's on Grandma's side.
Mhm.
We'll get to that story too in a minute. All right, so we can actually 6, 7, that's 7, Grandpa 8. If you can't remember any more of the names, we can look them up on the personal ancestral file or
Don't you have a family group sheet?
not of Grandpa's siblings.
Oh,
Do you?
I think I do.
I do in my drawer.
I don't. And I would like one, but like I say, I can print one off.
All right. Well, I'll bring my book tomorrow.
Okay.
And we'll see what
And
I've
we'll
got.
see
Mhm.
what names we have on there. And
Right.
Okay, but I particularly want to know the story of my grandfather.
Now, you have to understand that this is not gospel because I don't know
Well,
all the ins and
I
outs.
know.
I'll tell you what I know.
That's all we can ask of you, Mom. But I know that Grandpa did not talk about it,
No,
and it was never discussed.
No.
But that doesn't mean that you have some information. And I would like to know, and Robin would like to know, because it's really the story of a hero. So we want to,
well, my dad was 14,
okay?
and they had this huge herd of cows. And that's when I think the cows were in Mud Lake.
His father was a physician,
Yeah,
and his name was
right.
Edwin, and his mother's name was Minerva, right?
Minerva.
And he was a physician.
In Shelley, Idaho.
Okay, that's good to know. I don't even know if Shelley is near Blackfoot.
Probably not.
Who knows? I wonder where he went to med school. Well, anyway.
Grandpa?
No, Edwin, your grandfather, where he
That's
went.
what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. I think it was Chicago.
Oh. Do you, while we're talking about it, just off the top of my head, do you remember the name of your great-grandfather? It would be Edwin's father. And did you know anything about him?
Mm-mm.
Okay. What do you know about your grandfather? Did Grandpa talk about him? Did
Not
you
much.
have much to do with him when you
I
were a
only-
child?
I only saw him twice in my whole life.
Okay, well, I didn't know that. Did you know that, Robin?
Well, he left his family, so.
Oh, I know, but we're
Several
gonna
times.
we'll get the story.
He, you know, in their home, they had, a parlor and a waiting room for the patients and
Oh, so
stuff
the
like that. It was
doctoring was done in their
inside.
home.
Yeah, inside job.
Okay. That's interesting.
And my grandfather had an elbow just like your dad.
I didn't know that.
He fell down the cellar steps.
Hmm.
He was going down to fix the furnace.
So that would have made surgery a little difficult with an arm that... So he had his elbow fused?
He wanted your dad to have his elbow fused, but your dad didn't want to do that. He said, no, it moves this way, and you have to reach over and move yours manually.
Oh. So Dad's elbow wasn't fused?
Your dad's, no. He had lost the radial nerve, but he could
It
move
was
that.
set, but not fused.
He could move it this way.
Oh, he could move it this
Yeah,
way.
he could move it this way, Mom. He couldn't bend it at all. Remember?
Right.
He could move it up and down, but he
Yeah.
could not bend it.
But when would Dad have?
Ever met your grandfather?
I think Grandpa came to the house.
Your grandfather,
Edwin.
Edwin, came
See,
to your
there was a
house?
reconciliation at some
Okay,
point, because we have
okay.
pictures of her grandfather with all of his children sitting in somebody's house in
Okay.
California.
Okay.
Right. That was Uncle Glenn's house.
Well, if we could, that would be great to get that picture and identify all those people, Mom.
Yeah.
In that picture, we need to do that.
I think she has written on the back of it.
It wasn't when I looked at it.
No.
And they are It was in Uncle Glenn's house. Yeah, he was the lawyer.
Oh, yeah.
There's a family picture.
Well, what we could do is get some of those photographs. Have
Oh,
Mother
yeah.
talking into the.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect, because then we have a record of it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. But his was fused, Dad's was not. I always thought it was.
When I was 8, Kay and I were sitting on the front steps out in front of our house, reading the comics on Sunday morning. And
Is this in Salt Lake?
yeah. And Grandpa came by and said, do the Cutlers live here? Yes. Is your dad at home? Yes. What'd you get him for me? Never identified himself.
As your grandfather.
And he probably stayed 10 minutes. We have a sweet, sweet letter from one of his wives.
Well, before we get to that, because I didn't know he had several, I guess we could figure out how long that. Did your grandmother and grandfather did they ever get divorced, or did he just leave the family?
Idea. He
Okay.
left the family.
Okay, he left the family when Grandpa was how old?
I don't know.
Well,
She died of a broken heart.
Yeah, I thought
Pneumonia.
Grandpa was banished to this farm.
He was.
Okay, so you don't know how old he was?
He was 14. I keep telling you that.
So,
And I don't know how long he stayed there. Probably Uncle Ed rescued him. And he went to Rick's College.
Grandpa went to Rick's College?
Yep,
Who knew?
that's where they met.
Your mom?
Mhm. Well, they met at a Grange dance.
Well, wait, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Okay, so he went to the farm when he was 14 years old.
And apparently stayed there till he was college age?
Hmm.
Whose farm was it?
It's probably Grandpa's.
Oh.
And this is where the cows were.
Yep.
So he farmed
He milked those stupid cows twice
from
a day.
14
And-
until 18, and he lived out on this farm.
Yep.
And did somebody bring food to him, or?
No,
So, you aren't aware at this point whether your grandfather had left the family at this point or anything? You know nothing. That is all vague to you, and you never talked to your cousins about any of this?
No.
And you, let's see, who's the cousin that's still alive, that's living around here? Shirley. Yeah, it might
Her
be
name is Shirley Allred,
Shirley Allred.
but she's not related to the Allreds.
Oh, good. Because if she was, that would have been kind of interesting. This is someone that maybe we could talk to get more of the story if Aunt Gladys was familiar at all with what happened. And they talked about it in their family.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, if your grandfather or your father leaves your
Shirley
family.
lives right on, I've pointed out the house to you a million times. She lives on Center Street, just up from Smith's Market. On the corner house, has a little white fence around it. Across the street from the retirement center, from the, not retirement center, but
The city offices?
no, the old, where they dance, and
I'm trying to think. There's Smith's and there's the city offices.
it's on the
White fence,
south
okay.
side.
South side of the street.
well, that center, it isn't a retirement center, but it's,
Some kind of a dance
yeah,
recital hall.
well, they do all kinds of, they cater to the older generation.
It plays, or you're not talking about the Hale Theater, are you?
No, that's down the street.
Well, I'm not familiar with your neck of the woods, Mother, so I don't really know. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. I can go look and see.
Yeah.
Okay. So, at some point, Grandpa Ed left the family, and we're not sure when. And he left his family because,
I have no idea. I guess he fell out of love with his wife.
I thought that Grandpa was banished to the farm
Grandpa was. Now,
because
who
he...
are we talking about
No,
here?
Grandpa Ed. I'm talking about Grandpa Ed.
Yeah.
I thought that my grandfather, your father, left or was banished because he challenged his own father
Right.
because his mother's heart was broken because he found out that your grandfather was having an affair with the nurse.
Well, that makes a good story.
Well, is it true to your
I
knowledge?
don't know.
Well,
I really don't know.
did you tell me that story, or do you think,
I have no idea.
maybe I just dreamed it?
I don't know.
Do you think that he had a child with the nurse?
I have no idea.
Did
Well,
he
I'm
ever
sure-
have any
I'm sure
children
he
out
had-
of wedlock?
Yes, he did. But I don't know anything about them. They came to our house. You girls were teenagers,
Uh-huh.
and these boys were some part of Grandpa Ed's family, and came as missionaries. They had dinner with us. That was the first and last time I ever saw them. And we have a picture of you girls.
So the missionary would have been a cousin to
Could
you?
have been.
I remember him coming, actually, but I thought he was directly related to the family. I didn't know he was from a part of the family you didn't know. But I remember him coming, and we were quite excited because it was a shock. I mean, you didn't even, I think it was not you hadn't invited them over, to my knowledge. I think they just were canvassing the area and knew that a member family lived there.
Yep.
And it just so happened in discussing his name that you found out that you were related.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, like I say, you have told me the story, Mom, that he had a child with the nurse.
Okay. I'm
Because-
sure he did.
I didn't just pull that out of thin air. I'm very sure you told me that. So, I'm assuming that caused problems in their marriage, and he left at some point. But of course, this is all conjecture because you don't know the facts either. But we can see what we can trace down through cousins.
Well, you ought to ask Larry first. He can tell you some stories about his grandfather. How he didn't know him.
Why would Larry know?
Because Grandpa, when he came to California, he stayed with Uncle Ed, Uncle Glenn, and they did things. They went to the beach. Uncle Glenn had a beautiful place on Balboa Island.
And so Larry went over there, or?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
With
They
Grandpa?
invited him. Yeah, they invited him.
Wow. Oh,
They
well,
went as a
definitely ask
family.
Larry.
Yeah.
He went with Uncle Glenn's family or with Grandpa?
With Grandpa and Grandma and yeah, Larry.
So Larry would have been young.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Larry he stayed with Uncle Glenn a couple of days or something, and he swam, just a pipsqueak kid.
Mm-hmm.
He swam across the aisle there.
Across that inlet between Balboa Island and,
Right.
yeah, actually I've been there. Have you ever been
No, I
up
don't
there?
remember.
Yeah, it's really pretty. In fact, it's such an odd, there's an island, but you almost feel like you can touch it.
Mm.
You know, it's not like there's a lot of,
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Well, good. We can talk to Larry about what he remembers. He would have been fairly young if Grandma
Oh,
was still
yeah.
alive. So, so Grandpa, I did not know. I had no idea. Grandpa went to Rick's College
Yep.
for a time.
Yep.
And I'm assuming he, because not sure if his father has left the family, how he's affording, you know, obviously they're going to have to make it on their own, whereas his other siblings had gone to college and had it paid for through their father.
Yeah.
So Grandpa went to Rick's College, I'm assuming with money that he had saved, and
I don't. It's probably Uncle Ed.
oh, Uncle Ed, who was his father figure, might have helped him. Oh, that would be wonderful if that's the case. That would.
Oh, Uncle Ed helped him a lot.
Oh, that's wonderful. And he met, did Grandma go to Rick's College also, or was she just in
No.
the area?
She must have been just in the area.
Okay. At a Grange dance.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know how long Grandpa Cutler went to Rick's College?
Nope.
He was fairly taciturn, the man. Just didn't speak a lot.
Nope. Ask Larry. Can tell you that they never had long discussions.
Do you know approximately when what he did for a living then in their early marriage?
He worked for the railroad that went up above, the one that took 2 engines to climb the grade.
Oh, yeah, at, the coal place, Price.
No, it's above Price, I think.
Yeah. So he worked there, where it takes 2 engines to pull the coal up the hill?
Yeah.
How did he get out there? Did they live out there?
I imagine they must have had some kind of an abode out there.
Cal knows the name of the place. It's a Utah, it's famous.
And they lived on the farm,
Whose farm?
Grandma and Grandpa's farm.
You mean your
All
mother's grandparents? Or would it be their parents and your grandparents?
My grandparents.
So Grandma's parents,
Yeah.
they lived with the Allreds.
Yeah.
And so they lived, did you ever live there also at that time, or did you just visit when you were a girl?
I've never lived in Pleasant Grove.
Okay, lived for a time with, is it Edith?
Ida.
Oh, Ida, and what was his name?
Lawrence.
Oh, Lawrence Allred. In Pleasant Grove.
Or was it Maxfield?
Oh, no.
No,
Oh.
that's my grandmother's line.
That's the house that burned down.
Ida Allred's house is the one.
Oh, yeah,
that
it's your
down.
grandmother, that's right. Okay. After he worked for the railroad, do you know what happened where he worked?
I really don't.
Well, eventually they go to California.
Yeah, but that's when you were young.
Oh, no, Mom.
That's when you were young.
Yeah, that's when you were young.
Yeah, high school.
Yeah. So you obviously lived in Salt Lake.
We lived in Salt Lake for several years.
You went to school in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
And you lived on that avenue. Or at least you tell stories of sledding down that hill or
Right, the 4th South Hill.
4th South.
Well, I can tell you I went to Hamilton Grammar School. I went to Webster Grammar School. Went to Bryant Junior High.
That's actually a middle school right now. That's
Went
the one
to-
they had all the brouhaha about, I think.
Went to East High.
But did not graduate from there because you left before your senior year of high school.
That's right.
What was your dad doing during those years, your school years in Utah?
Just working here and there. There was a depression on, and
Okay.
he did everything.
So odd jobs.
Yeah.
But is there any one of those jobs that stands out in your mind?
Well, he worked for a heating and well, they had air conditioning in those days.
No.
Heating company. In the summers, he worked at Salt Air. And we took picnics out there.
And there's a great story that you tell about that. About taking the
Interurban.
the what?
Interurban.
I think it was a little railroad.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And so
my
you took
mom-
rides.
And my mom would bake a cake, and we'd share that cake with everybody, all the employees.
Uh-huh.
We got to ride on the rides for free.
Mm-hmm. What kind of cake was it?
Oh, usually yellow. They didn't have cake mixes.
Yeah. And he did that in the summer. Because in the winters, it'd be too snowy and cold to have Salt Air open.
Well, yeah, that closed down.
Uh-huh. Didn't they have dances out there?
Oh, you bet. Big time bands.
Uh-huh. And did you go to those?
No, I was too young.
Did your parents?
Yeah.
So this was during the Depression. Is that correct? Did Grandma sew at that time? Was she
Yep.
making dresses at that time?
You bet.
So Grandma was sewing for others at this time.
They had a,
What kind of sewing machine was it?
singer.
Was it the kind you pedal?
Yeah.
Did you get the story about her parents met?
No, only that they met at a Grange dance. Is there more? Mom, is there more to the meeting at Grange dance?
That's all I know.
Do you know how Grandma learned to sew?
I think she taught herself. Or her mother. And she had a pedal machine also.
She probably learned from her mom to start with.
Yeah.
Somebody had made those quilts.
My grandma and I made those quilts together.
Oh, nice. So, Grandma Allred used to quilt the little quilting stitches.
Well, and she would cut the boys' denims
Mm-hmm.
when they outgrew them
Mhm.
and make huge quilt blocks, and
Mhm.
because they slept out on the porch and it was cold in the winter.
Mm-hmm. Those quilts have actually made a comeback. People make quilts out of old Levi's now
Yeah,
because they're great for picnics and
everything.
they're indestructible.
And they're warm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're very warm.
well, that was the object. And my grandma used to knit her own socks for the boys and yep.
Um, let's see. So while Grandma and Grandpa Cutler were living in Salt Lake and you and Uncle Kay were going to school, it was during the Depression,
Yeah,
and you lived on 4th South.
we didn't live on First South. We lived on Third. We used to sleigh ride down Fourth South.
Uh-huh. But you lived on 3rd,
Third East,
yeah.
between Second and Third East.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
And you would roller skate to the library.
yep, the downtown library.
Which actually is, the library is it's right across from the ZCMI Mall. It's the old planetarium,
Oh.
Yeah,
you know, and then they moved the planetarium out to Gateway.
Mm-hmm.
What's the name of that planetarium?
Hanson.
Hanson Planetarium, thank you. It's to
what is she
downtown,
eating?
Carrots.
Mm.
roller skate to downtown library, and I'm gonna put in parentheses, Hanson Planetarium. That's a beautiful building.
Yeah,
They should make it a museum or something. It's too pretty of a building to let go to waste. Anyway, any other fond memories of living in Salt Lake and some of the things you used to do?
Like
we
grade
used to-
school girlfriends and skipping rope and
oh, we played a lot of hopscotch because it was cheap and it was outside. And we played a lot of marbles.
Hmm?
We played a lot of hide and seek.
kick the can.
Yep,
Really?
yep.
I thought that was just
Put
Dad.
the tin cans on the shoes and,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Did you ever walk down to Temple Square or to the Tabernacle?
You bet.
Did you go to concerts at the Tabernacle or?
They didn't have concerts then,
Oh.
Did
to
you
my
go-
knowledge.
Yeah.
We used to go to Liberty Park and they had a little
Uh-huh.
zoo there.
Mm-hmm.
We used to pack a lunch and go there. Used to go to Liberty Park and listen to the
Concerts.
concerts
Uh-huh.
in the summer and
Mm-hmm.
just take a blanket and,
Uh-huh.
yeah. In the wintertime, we had an icicle that was probably 3 feet around.
Oh my.
Grew down the side of the house. My dad would chop that icicle, make ice, and then they would stand around and whip ice cream.
Mm-hmm. And use it to make ice cream.
Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful? Well, I'm sure Grandpa knew about ice cream, so would Grandma's. Milking all those cows all those years,
You bet.
they'd know how to make pretty good ice cream. In fact, I think I remember having homemade ice cream from Grandma and Grandpa.
Probably so.
That was pretty darn good. Was Grandma, of course she learned to cook from her mother, I'm sure.
Nothing fancy.
Okay.
It was plain Jane food.
So you had plain food growing up.
But you know,
Anything that you just absolutely loved, it was your favorite food that Grandma made?
oh, I don't know. Currant pie. Raisin cookies.
Mhm.
My grandma, during the Depression, when she would come on the bus to visit us, she would cure her pork in a can of grease to preserve it.
Uh-huh. So,
And
her-
she would bring that, and oh my, that was a real treat for us.
well, that's great. From someone who had her roasts ground for hamburger. She didn't want a lot of fat in her hamburger. Yeah. Mhm. Okay. Cured pork in grease brought to them. Yummy. I bet it did taste good.
Didn't she make your birthday cakes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Didn't you really like those?
Well, they were not like the cakes of today. You
Oh
had
yeah,
to
they didn't
understand.
have a whole lot of, they had sugar rations and.
Yeah, and they didn't have a lot of preservative in them, so, and there was no wax paper to wrap the cake in. So my mom would make a plain yellow cake. We would have for dinner that night. Whatever was left, she would wrap in a clean white dish towel. And then the next day, she would make a caramel sauce, you know, where you brown the
Mhm.
sugar and,
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, and warm the cake just a little bit and pour that warm caramel sauce over the cake. That was not too shabby.
I think she was more than just a plain old Jane cook.
And
I know she made wonderful bread and wonderful rolls.
yep, well, and she used to scold herself because she'd say, oh, if I could just make bread like Aunt Jenny. That was Genevieve's mother. And she did make wonderful bread. And bake every other day, yeah.
Mhm.
Along with taking care of the farm.
You mean, who was baking every other day?
Aunt Jenny.
Oh, let's put that in parentheses. I thought you were talking about your own mother.
Oh, she baked all the time, but I don't know what schedule it was on, because we didn't have that big a family.
Mm-hmm.
There was no point in baking a whole bunch, because it would just dry out,
Yeah.
except that my brother ate it.
Mm-hmm.
When are you going to talk about, I don't know your itinerary.
Oh, we're just gonna talk.
Okay, I just wondered if you were gonna go back and talk about grandma,
Yeah,
her
we'll go back.
childhood.
Mhm.
and-
Yep.
Okay.
I wanna get Grandpa,
Mm-hmm.
because there's lots of holes in
Mm-hmm.
my knowledge there, and then we'll go wrap back around and do Grandma and all of her
Mhm.
family, on her side of the family. We'll do the Allreds,
Mhm.
but we'll do Cutlers for a minute. Are you sleepy?
No?
Oh, okay. Let's see. So you were, well, let's tell the story of going down to visit your grandma Allred from Salt Lake.
I was just a child. I was 8 or 9 years old, and my mom used to walk me down to the interurban bus station. It wasn't a bus, it was an interurban train. And I would take that little streetcar down to my grandma's by myself. And my mom would tell me what station to get off on. I would get off and wander down the gravel roads. Somebody would come along and say, oh, where are you going? Whose little girl are you? Well, get in, I'll take you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you warm enough?
Yeah.
And how long would you stay down at your grandma's?
Oh, 3 or 4 days.
And did you have telephones then? I mean, that you could.
Well, there were phones, but we didn't have one.
Okay, so your mom would actually not really know if you'd made it or not.
No.
And that was the day.
That
You
was
know,
right.
That was the day. How wonderful. What an innocent time to live. You could just take one of your children and let them go and know that they would be fine.
Yep.
And you were going to Pleasant Grove.
Yep. Or Linden.
Is your grandmother's house, that's the one that burned down? And they rebuilt it?
Yeah, my mom and my grandma.
Your mother and your grandmother built the house?
Yeah, they did a lot of the work, a lot of the work. And we, after school was out, my brother and I went down, and we lived in the granary. My grandma cleaned it all out, scrubbed it down, and we canned, washed clothes, boiled the water on the stove, outside, made the soap, scrubbed the clothes. Yeah,
While you were in the process of building your grandmother another house?
right.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I think Grandma used a lot of the skills that maybe she learned in that process. Because I remember she was always painting in her house and doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
I
my
was just a
dad
little
would-
girl, but she was always puttering around,
Making things, taking things apart.
fixing things.
My dad would say, I'm afraid to go to work some days because I never know which wall your mom has taken out.
Yeah, she was quite I mean, I don't think anything really intimidated her too much. As far as, I guess if you've built a home with your mother, you pretty much feel comfortable doing most anything. But anyway, she was quite the handy woman.
Well, it wasn't a fancy house, My grandma's original house had brick walls like about 18 inches
Mm-hmm.
thick, and the windowsills were about that. And I used to love to curl up on those windowsills and read,
Mm-hmm.
because they were plenty big enough.
Mm-hmm. So when they rebuilt the house, did they build it with thick walls?
No, not like that. That was river brick.
Yeah. And you did that in a summer. You stayed down
Yeah.
there for a summer.
Oh, yeah.
And Grandpa, your father, stayed up in Salt Lake and worked,
Yep,
while you and your mom and your brother went down and.
right. They had to keep close track of my brother because he was a busy little boy.
Well, I bet that would be fun.
He was so busy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's nice. And so, who else was there to help do this? I'm sure it
Oh,
was
they
more
had
than-
outside men come in
Yeah,
and do
but,
certain projects.
Aunt Bernice, was she there?
Well, she was married and had a family by that time.
Oh, okay. I just thought maybe she would be there to
She
help.
did different things than my mom. They were two different individuals.
Mhm.
Aunt Bernice loved to play the piano and sing and do all the little feminine things, and my mother was expected to go out and help Grandpa and the boys do the hard work.
Okay, well, we'll probably come back to Grandma Allred when we do Grandma Cutler's side. But let's, if you can remember anything else you want to leave for posterity about living in Salt Lake. If not, we'll move on to coming to California.
Well, I can't. He used to go to Salt Air.
Mhm.
Um,
Why don't we, I think once you told me that, who your bishop was in Salt Lake when you were young. Who was your bishop?
Worthland.
Joseph B. Worthland's father?
Yep. He had a butcher shop on 2nd South.
Okay. Do you remember?
And what was Marion G. Romney?
He was an attorney.
But
No, but wasn't he in your, was he one of
He
your
was-
bishops?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
And this is when you were a young girl?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Those downtown folks were the hot and heavy leaders of the church. They eventually all became.
Now, at that point in your life, did your parents go to church, or was it just you? You went to church by yourself.
I went to church by myself
Mhm.
Uncle Kay didn't go?
once in a while.
Why did you go?
It's just the way I was made, I guess.
I agree. I agree.
Mhm. So,
Because my best girlfriend was Catholic, she did not go with me.
What
right.
was her name?
So you
Betty Barrett.
just walked to church, and
Yeah.
did you sit with another family? Did you sit by yourself?
I sat by myself most of the time.
Well, how old were you?
Are these high school years or
Yeah.
grammar
Mhm.
school
Well,
years?
high school years, I was going to East High, and I used to go to get myself up every morning and walk to seminary up that Fourth South Hill in the snow.
Mm.
So all those stories about Dad hiking, it's really Mom.
Oh. So,
And I'd walk to primary and walk to,
yeah, so you went to primary.
yep,
Uh-huh.
learned all those little plays and songs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming Uncle Kay went to primary. You couldn't have been that rebellious or whatever you want to say when he was a child.
No, I don't remember.
Oh, well, we could ask him. I don't know. He might not want to talk about that, but you
He would
remember.
say, I don't remember.
Yeah, you remember specifically going to church by yourself in high school, at least.
Yep.
And sitting by yourself, which surprises me.
No, Mom is shy.
I know, but I would have thought someone would have said, "Oh, there's Flora. Come and sit with us,
Yeah,
Flora." You know, that
yeah.
kind of thing. Because the communities were very
I know.
outgoing and friendly and
Not East High.
Oh.
No. They thought they were better than anyone
Oh,
else.
how sad.
What is that? Here, I thought they were the good old
No,
You know,
they
you
were
had
not the good
Bishop
old boys.
Romney, who would have said, "There's that sweet little Flora.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that we keep track of her," and
Mm.
you know. So, yeah, but your parents didn't go.
No. Matter of fact, my dad usually worked on Sunday.
Well, I'm sure they regret that now. They wish they had made better choices, and you were a good example, Mom.
In my younger years, I remember they both worked in the Mutual
Oh,
and put on plays.
Grandpa?
And,
That's really surprising to me because he was always he seemed pretty quiet to me and not very outgoing.
oh, he had a good time.
That's great. Well, I'm sure they probably didn't go attend church because Grandpa was working and maybe Grandma was sewing. I don't know. There was probably reasons why.
Oh, I'm sure.
So that all worked out because they eventually served a mission together and
You bet.
all that. So it all worked out. Let's see, what else? Did you have a boyfriend before you went to California?
Well, there were 2 or 3 boys in my class that I liked.
Mm-hmm. Did
I
you?
was going to grammar school, there was a duplex right in front of us, and there was a boy there that was my age, and I think we went to our first school dance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a candy wrapper was the entrance fee.
I see. But no one in particular that you remember?
There was a boy, Eldon Johnson. His family was Catholic.
Oh, I'm so glad you didn't hook up there.
Right. But I don't know what happened to him.
That's all right. So, what was the pull to go to California for your parents?
Money.
Okay.
There
And
was
this
a
was
depression on. There
Mhm.
was no money, no jobs.
Mhm. His brothers were living in Utah at the time.
Which brothers?
No, I don't know. I don't know their
Glenn
names.
and Hal and
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Glenn lived in
lunchtime.
California.
It's lunchtime, so do we want to give her a rest?
Yeah, we'll give her a
Okay.
rest.
Why?